Hi Mark, thanks for joining us this week. This is another of the MBM category management interviews with experts. We're here with Mark, who I'm going to ask to introduce himself in a moment. These interviews are being conducted with a view to sharing and understanding more about category management, the good ideas and tips that are out there, to provide a little bit of thought provocation and to get people into a place of maybe this could be done better and differently from what they're doing at the moment. So there's our objectives. We've got a series of questions I'm going to run through with Mark shortly. I'm going to hand over to Mark now as a brief introduction and a hello from him. So thanks again for being here, Mark. Over to you for a little bit about you, please.
Thanks, Andy. Very shortly, I started in commercial about 33 years ago. God, I am that old. And worked in different roles pretty much across the gamut. So started in sales and marketing. I've worked in up to board level in roles such as buying directors across very large retail organisations, and then switched into training and development and HR. In fact, the only department I haven't worked in is finance so far. So I've got a reasonable spectrum of experience on both retail and on manufacturing as well, and the issues that come between the two of them.
Terrific. Thanks, Mark. All right, so let's get into the questions that we've got. So can you give us an understanding of your experiences of category management, kind of how you've maybe seen it changed and where you see it going to in the future?
Yeah, the first time I ran into category management, I started to use it in sales in the businesses I was working with about 25 years ago, 26 years ago. And it wasn't until I jumped the fence and actually moved from sales to running a large buying commercial team for one of the big electrical retailers in the UK. I suddenly realised the limitations. We were going through a Catman exercise because the company was in turnaround and we were trying to fix a load of broken problems. So we went through a Catman exercise, and I sat down with one of my senior cats who was looking after an area, a really sexy area like floor care, which involves vacuum cleaners. And after going through the list of products to keep and to expand and the ones to kill off, one of the ones she highlighted was a cute little vacuum cleaner. You've probably seen it in the stores, little red guy with eyeballs on and a thing like a hat. It's called a Henry. Okay, and the Henry sold well. Didn't make too much margin, but the turnover was great. And the only issue that we were running into was the returns issue on it. And so, quite rightly, when we put it through the Catman process and scorecarded it, it just failed the acid test. So it was going to be exited from the business. At that time, we were doing lots and lots of store visits. So one of the store visits I did, I was talking to somebody who looked after floor care in one of the outlets. And they asked whether there was any changes going to happen. I explained that Henry was history. And the person I was talking to said, she said it was great because at least the builders won't annoy her anymore. That's sort of a moment of clarity. I said, what do you mean builders? She said, well, builders always buy the Henry. It's, it can suck up things like half a brick. It's very, very powerful, relatively cheap, and bulletproof to an extent. It can take that sort of hammering. And after suddenly we realised we needed to do a load more investigation as to what was going on. And absolutely, builders were seeing us as a point of purchase for the Henry. We were local, we were easy to get to, easy to park at. So that was the access point for them. But when we analysed the basket data on the Henry, what we realised was some of the baskets included 2 or 3 fridges, 2 or 3 washing machines, occasional 2 or 3 televisions, or dishwashers. And what we came to realise after doing some research and talking to real shoppers out there was that these were small independent builders that were buying the Henry from us. If we delisted the Henry, when they walked in the store for it, we'd effectively delisted them as a customer because that was the flow generator. And while they were buying their new Henry because they'd killed the old one or brought back the damaged one, they were buying all the products to fit out flats and small houses. So it was the first thing that showed me that category management had some significant flaws. Don't get me wrong, Catman is excellent when used properly, and as soon as people break the rules and adapt it like you're doing at the moment and pushing the boundaries of what Catman can do and not sticking just to the rigour of Catman, using some common sense approaches, actually it can be very special. But used in its vanilla format, it can destroy parts of your business. We'd have killed off several other categories. The worrying thing was that this category manager didn't know that she was about to damage 2 or 3 other categories. So she'd have made the right decision for her cat and killed some of the trade in 2 or 3 other ones. So as far as the store was concerned, the store suffers, but her cat grows. So one of the issues I see with category management, how it has evolved and is now needs to evolve more, is starting in categories too low. We always need to start at store or group level. Starting at cats just creates a tunnel vision, and that could cause some significant issues and cost a lot of money.
That's brilliant, and I really like that story in your book. For me, it's trying to move people away from just looking at the data in very black and white format and then seeing the wider implications and the wider ramifications of those decisions, because often, as you've said, people are too blinkered in their approach. So for me, that just sums it up superbly with a great story. Thanks, Mark. How would you describe category management? And I appreciate that's a really big question to try and hone down into some words, but how would you describe category management?
I think Nielsen could probably do a better job than I can of describing it. Sure. However, the way that I look at category management is it's a scalpel. Okay, it's a great tool. It can be very incisive, and it can do excellent work and help significantly close very clear performance gaps, so increasing value both at category level and at store level. However, it's a scalpel. Now, my pushback to this always is, would you allow a doctor to go hacking lumps off your body if they hadn't done a proper diagnosis? Just because they've got a scalpel in their hand doesn't mean they're actually using it in the right way. So for me, category management is a tool in the chest, and it needs to be supported by other clear strategic drivers and a very clear understanding of what everyone is trying to achieve. Because delivering that at category level is only one small piece of the puzzle, and exposing everyone to the larger strategic development for a business is just as important.
Terrific, thank you. Category management has a number of pitfalls that are within it, and you've started to allude to a bunch of those. Where do you see the kind of the biggest pitfall of category management?
Well, okay, this is me about to climb onto my high horse. He's called Kevin. He's very nice. The question I always ask, I occasionally get asked to do a keynote, and I always start by the same question, and it's a hard one for an audience. And you can imagine an audience full of senior, middle management, manufacturers mixed in with very large retailers, and I ask the question: on a Saturday morning, do you get up and you think, great, I really want to go grocery shopping? Or do you think, damn, I've got to go grocery shopping? When I ask them to put their hand up if they really want to go grocery shopping, there's maybe 2 or 3 hands in an audience of 600 or 700. Okay, that tells you that people see it as a chore. Now, once you understand that we're spending billions of pounds and have spent tens of billions of pounds over the last decade on developing the outlets where we are and developing the categories, you have to start asking your question, why are we spending all this money on developing environments that even we don't want to be in? So, when you step back from that and you say, okay, so what's causing the problem? Category management often is a way that people end up looking very similar to the other people next door, because people are using the same techniques to close the same gaps with the same data. And ultimately what happens is, I mean, if I blindfolded you, there's nothing kinky about this, okay? If I blindfolded you and took you to a store and stood you in the middle of a store and took the blindfold off and gave you 10 seconds to tell me what store you were in, probably the biggest and most significant thing that you'd see that would tell you what store you're in would be the colour of the POS. And that is, if you walk most of the stores in the UK, in America as well, I've just spent a month in the States touring, and it's exactly the same over there. There's a few people who break the mould, but typically it's commonality. What Catman is producing is commonality, and that's a significant danger. That's why Asda, that's why Tesco, that's why Sainsbury's have thrown billions of pounds over the last few years at price-offs and seen their market share slide back, where you've got other people out there like the Co-op, like Morrison's to a certain extent, but certainly Waitrose, who have a specific idea for who they are in the marketplace and are not, yeah, okay, they want to compete on price, but that's not their raison d'etre. What they're about is doing something else, adding something else to other people's lives, adding some value, some emotion, some change, and filling out a piece that they can't fill out elsewhere.
Yeah, I guess that's about kind of being bold and brave enough to stand up and put your head above the parapet to a certain extent, and maybe not to try and appeal to try and be everything to all people. Having that differential is key.
Well, it's difficult. I mean, one of the questions I would ask is, when the new chief exec at the big retailers gets appointed because the last chief exec couldn't grow the business, what KPIs are they giving them to hit their bonus? Is it just to go black, or is it to substantially invest in the business to be something different in 5 or 10 years' time? My gut feel is that it's about performance-related figures, and because of that short-termism, and guess what? They pressurize manufacturers to give them better prices, to give them a price advantage in the marketplace, so they're sucking value out of the market.
Absolutely. I think everyone watching this video right now is nodding their head saying, yeah, we've been there, we've done that. I think the challenge will always be, let's be bold, let's be different, let's really push some boundaries and see where it takes us, because at the end of the day, if we always do what we've always done, we're always going to get the same results.
Exactly. I think there's a significant issue behind that, though, Andy, in that there's so little trust between manufacturers and retailers. And I work with one of the big retailers in the UK, and trying to help them see the world through the manufacturer's eyes, and also vice versa. It's very difficult because, we've been playing this game for a long time, and negotiation essentially is, selling is science. Negotiation is poker, and my question is always, are you honest with the other people around the poker table? And because negotiation's in the middle of this, it generates a lot of negative behaviour. And one of the hardest things to make Catman work, I believe, is to get a huge amount of trust around the table and maintain that trust and call out negative behaviours when they happen.
Absolutely, I love that. You mentioned data right at the beginning of that previous question. What advice would you give to companies, suppliers, whoever they may be, who are stuck regurgitating the same data and stuck just in that kind of Excel world, where we want to try and get them to is insight?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's again one of my passionate things. I love working with teams, and they're sending me some core information, and they're trying to translate that into both insight and sort of pumped up super insight to really make a change in their business. One of the issues that I see from a manufacturing perspective, I mean, I've been a little bit critical of retail. Let me be critical of manufacturing as well. When manufacturers do Catman exercise and insight exercises, they do have a tendency to cherry pick the stuff that helps them sell what they want to sell today. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Across the table, the other guys see this and they don't trust a word they're saying. So there's a lot of pushback between the two. If people really want to use data well, a couple of things I'd recommend. One is they sit in a room, they work their way through a model and work out where their real performance gaps are at both consumer and shopper level. So you're actually benefiting both sides of the table. And then once you start to work through those type of models, then step back from it and create some suppositions. When Tesla invented AC current, he didn't crunch loads of data and then eventually it popped out of the air. What he did was he made some observations, made a supposition that something was happening, and then he ran loads of tests to try and break that supposition, and eventually got to the point where he could break it, therefore he had to accept it. And that's what real insight generation is. You've got to start with somebody having an idea, and often people don't want ideas. What they want to do is to have the data deliver the insight. You can't do that. Otherwise, you're going to spend forever going around this big data wheel. You have to at some time sit back and say, do you know what? I think this is happening. And that's where you say you have to take, you have to have a little bit of courage and go with your convictions, and then use that whole process to test it and make certain you've done a rigorous test to make certain you reduce risk to an acceptable level, and then you go with it and try it. If you don't make a supposition and a guess at what's happening, you can never get to what you really can achieve.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're absolutely right. It all comes back down to trust. And kind of my next question was going to be around, what do you see as the biggest hurdle to good category management? I'm largely in agreement with you that it is about trust and actually to get this stuff over the line. Suppliers, it's relationships.
I mean, from my side, yeah, okay, I write books, but I also teach negotiation and sales and strategic events. And one of the big issues with negotiation is a lot of people out there that hang a very nice label over the type of negotiation they teach to both manufacturers and retailers, and say, yeah, it's collaborative negotiation. When you get your teeth into it, it's everything but.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you try and teach collaborative negotiation, it's very risky to the people who want to do it, because as soon as you trust someone, guess what it's like being in a relationship. If you trust the other person, you leave yourself wide open to being hurt. So that trust level is very difficult to generate, and you also have to teach them techniques to call out anything that's going to break that trust, because it takes a long time to grow, and it can be broken in a second with just a word out of place. So that whole process of trying to help people to actually get in that trustworthy environment so they can leverage each other's strengths is really tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really, really tough.
Like I said, appropriate trust, and at the same time for manufacturers and suppliers to have sight on what their actual category is. I think all too often we see people going, well, the category is the products I supply. And for them to start having that realisation that the category is often far, far wider and far, far broader than that. Have you come across instances where you've kind of tackled that challenge of saying, well, actually, let's define what the actual category is, because often it's very much governed by the manufacturer and how their business is structured, as opposed to how the shopper and the consumer see that particular product area?
Yeah, I mean, some of the pushback that we've had, and I could run you through a few instances, but I think that would end up limiting the conversation. But if I bring it back to a very simple thing, is what is your category going to do to someone? How is it going to make them feel, and how is it going to improve their life? It's irrelevant if you supply a product. Anybody can supply a product. I can go to Amazon and order the products I need online. If you're a retailer, you've got to think, how am I going to fill in and help them in their life, as opposed to just be there to serve up products at the right price? Because that game is over. Been over for a long time, and that's why retailers are starting to fail. And you have to go back to basics. And for category management to really work, again, I'm a very simple person in so many ways, as my friends will tell you. Use the 5 senses. When you're developing a category process, think, how am I going to engage as many of the 5 senses as possible to deliver something in category which affects the shopper, so that I can actually access the consumer? And a lot of category exercises don't separate shopper and consumer in the equation. They often go into it and talk about the customer, and they're not definitive about what they're really talking about. Is it a shopper issue we've got? Is it a consumer issue? And when you actually start breaking those down and understand that you need a shopper strategy and a consumer strategy and a store strategy, that all has to fit into the category strategy. And within that process, the more senses you trigger, the more depth you get to the interaction with the shopper.
Couldn't agree with you more, Mark. Perfect. Right, last question from us. What's your favourite film and why?
A wrong question to ask somebody who really loves movies. So if you walk through my house, there's movie posters, signed movie posters everywhere. There's no shock that my son's called James. I walked out of a James Bond movie 2 weeks before he was born. Right. His middle name is Steve. Guess what? I love Steve McQueen movies. So I could say the Thomas Crown Affair, because it would be an easy one. I couldn't say it on any Sunday because I ride motorcycles and watched that movie and then went out and bought my first one. But actually, a movie that I'd point everyone to is an old movie. I think it's mid-90s, so it's dated, but it's called Trouble in Mind, and it's a love story. And the reason I love it is because it's a love story, and it's a fight between 2 disparate characters. They're completely at odds all the way through. Everything is against them. And at the end, the hero saves her husband, who she's separating from, in a gunfight, and gets mortally wounded. And the 2 of them, she wants to be with him, and he drives off into the sunset with a gunshot wound, obviously going to die, and he leaves a note behind. And the note just says, "Just turn around and I'll be there." Every time I watch that movie, it cuts me in half, because I'm a sad romantic at heart. And if I could encourage retailers to understand that those unusual relationships often create something really powerful, and making people feel something amazing, real emotion, real heartfelt emotion from an honest perspective, then they will never worry about flow in their store, because if they can make people feel loved and loving, then it's a place that people want to be.
Brilliant. Mark, thank you. Love the connection back to category management in that last answer. That was terrific. Thank you very much for your time today. I've really appreciated it.
No problem at all. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.